Alright, before we start this video, I just want to go over this before you all type furiously in the comments. I actually recorded this a while ago before I did this little bit that I'm going to show you right now, and well, I didn't want to redo it because then I would know the result heading into the match, and then it would kind of ruin the commentary in a sense, so please enjoy me learning the pronunciation of this leader.
Gecko Moria.
One more time.
Gecko Moria.
So for anyone who wants to know, I now know how to pronounce Gecko Moria. But in this video, I did not know that going into it, so I say it wrong a couple times. So before you scream, just enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Atrocious. You can also call me Jake, and today we have a special match here for you today as part of the Vegas One Piece Pirate League. So for anyone who does not know, I live in Las Vegas and they run this like community league where people enter in, get drafted into teams, and then those teams face off during the year. This Discord match that we have for you today is part of one of the crew battles that's going on, one team facing another. I'm actually part of the boys on the left, Peter, my captain, and so it's going to actually be Reiju versus Gecko Moria on the right side. The Gecko Moria is kind of peeking in that bottom left portion of the screen, and so both players picking up 5. I believe the player on the right mulligan, so they got to take this hand that they see, put out their 5 life. Reiju keeping the hand and staying at 4. So moving into the game, it looks like, who's going to be going first in this one? It looks like it's going to be the Gecko Moria over on the right side. So playing a turn 1 Sindri, excellent turn 1 play. You cannot complain about seeing that. Trashing the top 5 cards, going to be a Rebecca, 2 Peronas, a Suru, and I think a Dr. Hogback was that card. So really decent start, especially with the Peronas, but Peronas not necessarily incredible in this matchup, mostly because discarding cards doesn't work as effectively against Reiju. Reiju playing that baby Reiju and doing the immediate turn 1 evolution to draw cards off of that, and so picking up some cards and passing the turn off. Already got a 5k body on the field that the Gecko Moria player is going to have to deal with. So that's one of the strengths of this deck. Going into 3 Dawn next turn could be strong, and so using leader effect and swinging 6, a typical turn 2 play, going first from a Gecko Moria, they're going to have to trash a card from their hand to be able to bring back a character. It could be a Perona after trashing those 2. There's an Absalom right there, and the unfortunate thing is the Absalom isn't really going to work too much because that Reiju is still at a 4 cost, so going to be opting for the Dr. Hogback instead. Maybe grabbing something like, grabbing one of the cards in his discard pile, but honestly not too many great options in my opinion. So got to put it back 2 from the discard pile into the trash before you take one, and it's gonna look like it's gonna be is it a Dr. Hogback he's putting back? Dr. Hogback and Suru. So interesting choices there, especially because we've seen Dr. Hogback always, kind of get back some key stuff like the 8 cost Gecko Moria, and so grabbing that Perona off the trash, the Reiju player is going to pitch the Miss Double Finger, one of the 2Ks in this list, and immediately going to play the Stage. The Stage is an instrumental part of this deck to allow you to find different pieces of the puzzle for your game plan, and so Peter on the left side with the Reiju. If he found a Stage and got another kind of baby Reiju to big Reiju combo off, that would be really, really strong. But the chances of that happening are pretty small, finding all 4 of those cards in like the top 15 of your deck. But using the Stage to pitch a 5-drop Niji, going to be grabbing a Sora off that. Sora can be good in some instances of the game, but is also a 2k that is valuable in your hand. Going to be swinging the Reiju here, a nice clean, crisp 5 over at the Gecko Moria. The Dr. Hogback will be looking to battle that later, potentially. And so pitching a Suru, so forcing a 2K counter to come out of hand on a 5K swing. You like seeing that if you are Peter and the Reiju. And so attaching 1 to the leader Reiju, swinging 6, and going to be taking that life there, going to 4. And the last on, going to be playing that Germa 66 searching card to look at the top 5, find a 7-drop EGG. So 7-drop EGGs, really, really good in this deck. Arguably one of the better Germa 66 characters that you can play and evolve from. And so going into now, player on the right's turn, going to be at 5 Dawn. Now we know that they put back the Perona in their hand, so there's a chance that they could play that down if they wanted to, or use leader effect to put it in the trash and then bring it back through the leader effect. But the thing about that is, I think that I was starting to say when I cut off, a lot of the evolutions that Reiju does is through either the discard pile or the hand. So the Perona's pitching a card from hand, you just usually pitch a big body in, especially with the 7-drop EGG in hand we saw get revealed off the Germa 66. If they play a Perona, that's probably the character that's going to come down, especially if they have the 4-drop EGG in hand. So already a pretty decent start for the Reiju player. The Gecko Moria says, you know what, it could be worse. You know, got to play turn 1 Sindri, got to use leader effect and trash some characters, seen some Thriller Bark stuff hit the bin overall. So it could be worse. Obviously, you probably wanted to KO the Reiju, and you might be able to in this turn, using 3 through the leader effect to bring back the Absalom that you trashed, maybe using like a Great Eruption or something in the turn as well to cost reduce that Reiju. And so we'll see exactly what they can do. This Sindri, I believe, being a 2000 power character, is a little tough in this situation, because you'd be interested to see like what a 5K swing at the Reiju would do, and then maybe like another 5K swing with the 2 Dawn, and then use Absalom, swinging 6 with leader at lead. But with the Sindri being 2 and you're at only 5 Dawn, it's a little more awkward than that. But going to be swinging 6 to start. Not 100% sure where this is going. I have their audio muted and my mic muted so they can't hear me, but going to be pitching that 2K Sora to get that out. And so going to be using the leader effect, swinging 7, pitching the Perona and trashing an Ice Age and a brand new. So 2 good cards if you're the Reiju player to see pitched, especially once the 7-drop EGG drops, and going to be playing that Perona. And so I believe the Reiju is only at 4 cards now overall, or maybe was at 6. So I thought the Sora means that they pitched one of the cards, but it could be, it looks like the 6 or the 7 was going at the lead, and yeah, it looks like 5. Oh, it looked like maybe was the EGG pitched? There might be a second discard pile that I'm not necessarily seeing. I don't think I see one. Not 100% sure, trying to think about it. I can't pause this because they're playing the Discord game live, so I'll just continue on. But let me know if there was something, because I know he had his hand down on the field earlier in the turn to showcase how many cards he had. But the EGG going away off the stage to start out and grabbing a 3-drop Niji. The 3-drop Niji could be played, but I think you're more aiming for the 1 Dawn, either Germa Searcher or attached to the Reiju leader, and then playing 4-drop EGG to be able to evolve. So Peter looking around, seeing what he can do with this turn. Going to be attaching that 1 Dawn to the Reiju. Going to be forcing a 2K, and it's going to be another Perona. So is that all 4 Peronas that we've seen from the Gecko Moria player already? And so going to be raw playing the Reiju. That's an interesting thing that we don't see too much, but is something that is really good because you get to draw cards, since he's had less Dawn than his opponent, and then also had 5 cards in hand, 5 or less. So now sitting at 7 cards overall after that draw. Got a healthy hand so far, but really going to need to establish the board in the near future because the Gecko Moria is slowly building up their side. Still has all 4 life as the Reiju and 4 life to the Gecko, so it's still anybody's game at this point. Now sitting at 7 overall in terms of the Gecko Moria. The Gecko Moria will have to think about where they want to go. Still hasn't seen an 8-cost Gecko Moria, so really hoping that through the trashing of potentially a leader effect, they'd be able to find one. And then that 5 swing on the Dr. Hogback causes a 5-cost Niji to hit the bin as counter. 6k swing from Perona could force a 2k, and it looks like it's going to be another missed double finger. And 3 drop going to be a Hina, and so that Hina is going to lower the Reiju to 0, and then the leader effect is going to pitch an 8-cost Moira from hand and grab an Absalom to pop the Reiju, really solidifying more board control. So really good job putting those 2 cards back in through the Absalom effect. Really good job by the Gecko Moria right now, just answering whatever the Reiju can put down overall. And we move into the next turn. Now I believe it's going to be 7 Dawn overall for the Reiju, as I quickly do a little bit of resizing of the Reiju cam right now. The Reiju is going to go into the turn and play the Ichiji. So the Ichiji is coming down now at this turn, going to be evolving and playing down the 7 drops. So I'm not sure exactly what he's minusing overall. It could be that Perona to be able to easily take it out. I think you'd rather have Perona be knocked out than the Dr. Hogback, because you don't want the Dr. Hogbacks to be cycled through leader effect to bring back valuable resources from the trash. And so 3 Dawn left in this turn. We'll see exactly where the 3 Dawn could go. Could be a Niji to bounce, I think, a 4-cost character back into hand. There are a lot of 4-cost characters on the field, primarily what Gecko Moiras play with, and so could be something that could help you out overall. You would lose to Dawn in the turn though, so you gotta value or you got to assess the value of where that Dawn is best placed. So swinging 8 now over at the Hogback, going to take that Hogback out, and now swinging 6 with the Reiju, going to be taking out that Perona, going to be using a Germa Searcher card to look for more pieces of the puzzle. I think at this point, maybe you're kind of looking for something like Judge, right? I think Judge could be nice in the upcoming turns. You're going to be at 8 Dawn next turn, I believe, so could be something that you see get played. It's going to be a 7-drop Ichiji though. You can't complain too much about that, and so we'll move into their turn now at this point, and going to be drawing the one off or the stage. The first one was the Germa Searcher card, and then the second one was the stage just there. So passing the turn off to the Moira now at 9 Dawn overall. So Reiju not necessarily doing too many Dawn minusing effects in this one, and so now at 9, the Gecko Moria is going to think about what they want to do. They could play the 8 drop. One thing that I haven't seen though overall, actually wait, they pitched the 8 drop earlier in the game for a leader effect. I have yet to see a Helmeppo hit the discard pile. Helmeppo really great in the comboing of getting characters off the field for Gecko Moria. Really good synergy with that 8 drop. So I wonder how much you're worried about that if you're the Gecko Moria player. You have seen a Rebecca though, so we know he's piloting somewhat of a different list than what we've seen in previous videos, but going to start out with a 5k swing. The 5k swing is going to proc an adult, I don't know, a big body Reiju, and so these swings are going to be countered out with different bodies and then taking that last one. And so one is the Ice Age, and it looks like an 8-drop Gecko Moria is going to come from hand as that Ichiji is put to a 2 cost to grab at least the Absalom. Going to be Absalom and brand new. I think that's a great combo overall if you're this Gecko Moria player, because not only do you get to take the KO because you have the Ice Age, you also get to do a little bit of searching running through your decks. So going to be KOing that Ichiji there, and going to be an Ice Age and a Sindri to put at the bottom of the deck. 2 good options and targets. And so only 3 cards in hand for the Reiju now moving into their turn. It's looking to be a little daunting. They're starting to put down the 8-drop Gecko Moiras down. They have 4 5k bodies and a 9k. Going to be playing that Judge, like I mentioned, pitching the mini Sora and the mini Ichiji there to be grabbing several different options, the Sora, the Niji, and also an Ichiji. And so drawing 1 card off of that Judge effect, going to be playing down using the Dawn minusing effects. First the Reiju to draw cards, then the Ichiji to be able to boost up a bunch of power, and then the Niji is going to come down. The Niji, I believe, doing this first, swinging before you do the Niji. So having the Niji on the field, going to be taking a knockout on that Absalom. We know there's only 3 cards in hand, and going to be swinging a 7, I believe, no Dawn attached to that Ichiji. Sorry if the desk is a little messy. He doesn't have too much room. So now going to be using the Niji super power up, I don't know what you call it, after taking out that Hina, and so clearing the Absalom, the other Absalom that was on the board, because with the 1 of 2 effects, you can choose one of your opponent's 4 cost or less characters and bounce them back into hand. And now with the Stage Search, going to be grabbing a 2k Sora to put into hand, and going to be passing the turn off to the Gecko Moria players. So at this point, you're in a pretty okay spot as Reiju. It's a little hairy though, and it's a little scary, especially if they can get rid of the Judge. The Judge could be instrumental in terms of the swinging. You don't necessarily care about the Judge's 2nd Dawn minus effect, but it's done its job, and you got really good value off of it going into 6 Dawn next turn. And so now the Gecko Moria looking around with all 10 Dawn. Could be really good if they played another kind of Gecko Moria 8-drop here, but because we saw one, I believe, pitched earlier off of the leader effect, it could be a strategy where he goes and gets Dr. Hog back to bring back a Gecko Moria. Maybe spreads the Dawn a little bit to swing with the Branu and whatnot. Could be a strategy that we see in this one, but definitely as the Gecko Moria game goes on, the less cards they have in hand. Going to be starting off with a Branu, and so there's a Gecko Moria going to be getting a Borsalino and pitching an Absalom. Borsalino was the only option in that, and so with 8 Dawn left, it looks like they're going, I thought they were resting it, but they're not. Ruben loves putting up and just laying the spread of his Dawn on the table. It's one of his big things. But looking around now, looks like he's going to be spreading out some Dawn in different ways, it looks like at this point. Could be using leader effect, and that's why we see that 2 Dawn right there. But maybe trying to think about, okay, if I can't KO this Ichiji through an effect, I wonder if I can be able to swing over it. If you were going to swing over it, it would be that 8-drop Gecko Moria. But in my opinion, if you do plan on using the Gecko Moria to swing at the Ichiji, you really need to try to find a way to get rid of the Judge as well. Ice Age would be a great card here, but unless they're playing 4 Ice Ages, I don't know if I would fully expect an Ice Age. We saw one get played earlier, and I believe we saw one trashed off of one of the Sindri or leader effects. So already seeing 2 could be trouble. But swinging 6 first and using leader effect, pitching a Rob Lucci. I believe that's the first Rob Lucci that we've seen. Pitching a Rebecca and Suru. So not getting any thriller barks there, and the Rebecca's going away. Could be trouble, but that Perona right there is going to force a card, I believe, or using the minus effect. He might have actually used the minus effect on the Perona, and it looks like maybe the 2K double finger counter out of the leader swing. And so attaching 1 Dawn and now swinging 10. I would think that this is probably at the Ichiji if I had to take a guess. And with only 4 cards in hand, really good job by the Gecko Moria players swinging at lead to try to bait out 1 more card. Now you're sitting here in a position of like, okay, I might either need to pitch my entire hand or let the Ichiji go, and value the Ichiji too much because it's going to be 2 Soras in the discard pile. And so the Absalom being hard played to get rid of the Niji. Remember, because the Perona did minus the cost earlier. Going to be a Sabo and another card. I couldn't tell what it was, unfortunately. Going back into the deck. And so now moving into Perona's turn, you feel like you got pretty decent value out of that, especially because you did get to save the Ichiji and Judge overall. But the thing about the Gecko Moria is they're still at 4 life. It is 4 life to 3, and you don't have many cards in hand. So starting off with the Ichiji, going to be doing a Dawn -1 and bringing that 7 drop to be able to battle with all of these cards. Going to be drawing 1. Now, the Ichijis with only 2 Dawn left, unless they minus the Gecko Moria, are going to be head-to-head in 7s. The Dawn could be good. You only have 3 cards left, no blockers, but how much value do you want to give to knock out this Gecko Moria? The Gecko Moria is just a really, really strong card, you know, pretty much KOing anything overall, and going to be swinging 7. And so I believe it's just going to be a 1K counter out of that Borsellino and swinging another 7. You do have another Judge to be able to battle the Gecko Moria if these Ichijis both get countered, because it's likely that they'll counter 2 and not 3, especially with only 2 cards left in hand before the determination of this. And another Borsellino hits the bin, another blocker going away. And so attaching to the Judge and swinging, I believe it's 9K at the Gecko Moria, going to be taking that out and then swinging just a raw 5 lead for a life. The Reiju now attaching the Dawn to the character Reiju and swinging 6, going to be a trigger, a Great Eruption. So the Great Eruption going to be pitching the 4-cost Reiju that was in hand, only 2 cards in hand. Now, going into the Gecko Moira's turn, they still could use the stage effect if they wanted to. It really just depends on what those 2 cards are, because if they're valuable cards, right, you don't actually want to pitch them through the stage effect, because if they're valuable enough, something like maybe another 4-drop Ichiji or a 2-drop Reiju, or maybe like another Judge, I guess, could be something. Well, Judge, you only have, what is it, 5 Dawn going into 7 Dawn next turn, so maybe Judge you're not really worried about at this point, but going to be thinking the final moments of this turn, some of the final actions that our player has here. And he's just going to pass the turn. So giving the information indirectly to the Gecko Moria is saying like, hey, these 2 cards are really, really good. Like, I'm not even going to use the stage at this point. So if you're the Gecko Moria, you're very curious about what those 2 cards actually are. Are they 2Ks? We have yet to see a Kaya, I believe, hit the bin or the field this game. So you're wondering when you're going to see a Kaya. Could be any other 2K as well, or it could be, like I said, the 4-drop Ichijis, you know, 2-drop Reijus, things of that nature, to be able to draw cards, you know, try to get out and build the hand back up, or battle with all of these characters. You really want to find an 8-drop Moira right here, right? Because now with 7 two 7 EGGs and 1 Judge, the Reiju is really stabilizing at this point. You have to commit a lot of Dawn to these characters to be able to get rid of them, both either in an attacking way or a cost reduction way, because they are 7s and 8s on the field. So splitting up the Dawn, I think thinking about taking on the attack with the characters that they have on the field, it's really going to depend on what these 2 cards are, because if they're like 2k counters, there's no way that he's going to be able to clear all of these bodies off of the field to start. So especially with 2 brand news, that's going to be a lot of Dawn commitment to even swing at all. It's going to be 4 Dawn overall. So maybe thinking about leader effect in this turn. If they leader effect, what could they do? They could Dr. Hogback. You still have 3 life left, so you could like Dr. Hogback to try to find the Gecko Moria, right, to bring back on the field in the next turn. Use it to do like a defensive kind of Borsellino brand new combo. But that might not be the greatest idea, because this Reiju deck is not going to slow down at this point unless you bump into it. So thinking about where they want to go now at this point, I'm going to start off swinging 5 with Absalom. And I bet this 5 is at the Reiju at this point, and it's going to be a little 2 cost Sora. So I guess one of the options that I presented of what that card is correct, because I was like, it could be a 2-drop Sora. Or I'm sorry, not a 2-drop Sora, a 2-drop Reiju. That's what I meant to say, apologies. It's early in the morning that they're playing this. And going to be another 5k swing, probably again at that character Reiju. So taking, it's going to be at the leader Reiju, taking that life there, saying, you know what, this 1 card, I'm not pitching this 1 card. And going to be another 5k swing, going to be a 4-drop Ichiji. So at this point, I think if you're the Reiju player, you know that these characters aren't really getting taken out overall at this point, and so you're fine with taking this life. You can't lose this turn, and so now getting defensive, playing that Sabo. So the Sabo is an interesting spot because it keeps all the characters alive in terms of effects, which you're not really worried about, but that means that you have to probably win this turn. You've got no life left, only a couple cards, but the Gecko Moria player having 2 life, you need to hit 3 times, and right now you only have 4 swings unless you have another Ichiji on the field. The Gecko Moria player really not being able to have a good way to play the Borsellinos, and really affecting this stage of the game of kind of putting the Reiju player on a clock right at this point. With only 2 cards in hand and 2 life that you're going to take, you probably off of the Sabo really kept some high counter cards like Sindri's, some Peronas, right? If you found more Peronas again, just to be able to compete. And so ditching the stage for the stage effect, going to be looking at 3 cards, maybe finding a 4-drop Ichi and going to be finding a 2-drop Reiju. 2-drop Reiju is not necessarily going to help you win this turn overall. And so we'll think about how this wants to go. You did get that with no Dawn commitment, thankfully. So if you don't have any more Ichijis that you can play onto the field, I think your best bet is just distributing the Dawn and swinging overall. This 6k swing here is a little scary to me if I'm the Reiju, and going to be taking that life, so it's going to be a potential trigger and not going to be opting for the trigger. Could have been an Ice Age to KO maybe the Reiju, but could have also been a Great Eruption to discard a card. So going to be swinging a raw 7 now overall with 3 cards in hand. Could pitch 2 of the cards here and you still have a block overall. I wonder if they have the Reiju player another Ichiji in hand overall at this time, because it seems like, in my opinion, several lower swings to be able to easily get out of, either through, now that they have 3 cards in hand, like pitching a 2K and a 1K to go up to 8, or, utilizing the block. The later that you can use the block, the better in this one, in my opinion, if you're the Gecko Moria player, but going to be taking that card there. So with 4 cards now in hand, going to be swinging a 7 with the Ichiji, going to be pitching a Sindri and an Absalom, now going back to 2 cards in hand, going to be needing one of the 2 swings to stick, and so swinging 7 now with the Reiju. It's going to be placing the rest of the Dawn on the judge, and that's going to be the game. The Reiju and Peter winning this one, revealing that he did have another Ichiji in hand to be able to run and swing, and the Reiju is going to take down the Gecko Moria in that one. The boys are going to be winning this crew battle series, I believe, on a score of 3-1. And thank you again so much for watching, and to also these players for playing the game. I super appreciate it. If you want to see more of these crew battles, let me know down in the comments below. I want to try to do more with our Vegas One Piece Pirate League, to like do coverage of it, like an ESPN type thing. I think it would be really fun as someone who works full time in like high level sports, and also likes card games as we run this league. As you know, our logo is inspired somewhat by professional leagues like the NBA, right, and the MLB. So thank you again so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next video.